Toku Sentai! Toku Sentai! Hey guys, MasakoX here, and today, with the first discussion of the month, we're going to be talking about the fabulously flamboyant force, the Ginyu Force. Ah, the Ginyu Force. Possibly one of the most colourful additions to the roster that is Dragon Ball Z. I mean, yes, we had the likes of Vegeta and Nappa, but they turned out to be proper villains, so you can't really consider them in the same class as the Ginyu Force. For the first time in Z, we actually had a really good band of baddies who weren't too much of a threat, but would at least buy us some time between the gap of Zarbon and Dodoria, and then coming onto the ultimate baddie, Frieza. And not only that, it proved to be the ultimate way for Goku to make an entrance later on in the story. When they first appeared on our screens, they were like nothing else. We knew nothing would be the same, and I'm not talking about Jace's Australian accent, and of course, don't worry, that was just a dubism, which for some reason is still really received pretty well to this day. And yes, they weren't the first band of ruffians in the series, but they turned out to be the most loved. And also, they were the perfect package of both strength and comedy. We did have the likes of the Pilaf gang, who were pretty endearing and did have a lot of comedy back in the day, but they didn't have the power to back it up. They only had the likes of gadgets and slapstick comedy to tide us over in the first arc of Dragon Ball, and that ultimately proved to not be all that popular. And then we had King Piccolo's children. They were plenty powerful for our heroes back in the day, but they were rather forgettable in terms of appearance. They weren't exactly colourful, just shades of green. I mean, okay, Tambourine's the exception because of what he did to Krillin. That's the only thing we remember him for. They all tended to mesh together because they were just a mixture of being green or a mixture of being scaly. The Ginyu Force, though, were perfect. They were plenty colourful, they stood out, they had their own personalities, and they also had the strength to back it up and actually prove a challenge and actually deserve to have a place on the screen. Today, we're going to look into the ideas of what made the Ginyu Force so great, as well as potentially unearth the origins of what made them so great. Well, I'm talking about previous to Dragon Ball Z. I managed to find something really cool while I was researching this. So let's get this first notion out of the way. I think it's safe to say that one of the things that we all know about the Ginyu Force is that there are some connections and links to the likes of Toku Sentai, and that's what we referred to them as well as the fact of Japanese Super Sentai being a very core component of their DNA. In the late 80s and early 90s, the Super Sentai craze in Japan was absolutely monumental. Around that time, there were dozens of copycat series trying to make a quick buck off the Super Sentai thing. Not all of them succeeded, though. The only way that some of them could even survive was to have a really weird American port of it. I'm looking at you, VR Troopers and Big Bad Beetleborgs. We would get a piece of that pie with the likes of Power Rangers, it being a localization of Super Sentai, but that's another story. And also, there's that really big thing in terms of linking the Ginyu Force to the Super Sentai. The thing about the Super Sentai, they're heroes, the Ginyus aren't. Wait, Masako, back the hiffle up. How did Toriyama get to the idea of including Super Sentai into Dragon Ball? Well, he got the idea from a source very close to home. His children. When coming up with new characters, I tried to go with types I haven't drawn much before. With the Ginyu Special Force, my kids were little at the time and were really into Sentai heroes, so I thought, hey, those are interesting. It was real easy, since their uniforms would obviously be the same pattern as what the rest of Frieza's army had on. It wasn't too different than what all the mooks wore. So all I had to do was put 5 guys together and call them a special force. I mean, there you go. Toriyama just thinks, I don't need to really draw a new piece of armor. Let's just put an insignia on. Boom, day's done. I'm gonna go and, do other things. Okay, that is pretty cute, getting the idea from his kids. That is adorable, and it makes the whole thing about the colourful troop make sense because they're all different colours, and Super Sentai Power Rangers, they're all different colours. Yeah, okay, that makes sense, but they're still not heroes. But I don't think that really matters, because there is something quite redeemable about the Ginyu Force. You see, in Dragon Ball, a lot of bad guys don't tend to get along with each other, or they don't really show, like, a sort of friendship. The Ginyu Force, though, ooh, that's different. They are the only villainous team in Dragon Ball that actually genuinely like each other, or at the very least care about each other's welfare. Remember the whole Saiyan Elite Squad's relationship, as it were? Nappa, Vegeta, Raditz? Yeah, they were all tied together by the art of fighting and having to band together with Frieza's forces. Okay, yeah, that's true. But did they really care about each other's welfare, or at least care enough to be friends? I don't think so. Raditz was obviously the black sheep, and Nappa was constantly being scolded by Vegeta even though Nappa was meant to be Vegeta's carer, so Nappa didn't really assert his authority even though he could have. The Ginyu Force though? They get along really well. They train together, they clearly socialize together, and they look out for one another and actually split up things to try and make sure they actually act the most efficiently. And yes, okay, we may not see that all that often given the fact they're up against the Z Fighters, and the story tends to lean in the favor of the Z Fighters, for obvious reasons. But at the same time though, we still get the effect of whenever a comrade of theirs falls in battle, so if like the likes of Goldo or Raccoon, Jace, Berta, they would all mourn it as a very heavy loss and a really big blow to their morale. So let's go back to Vegeta and Nappa. When Raditz fell in battle, did they care? No. Camaraderie is one of those aspects that we tend to overlook with military type like characters. You know, we think that they're just there to be soldiers and nothing else. We tend to dehumanize them. And if you want to give it a term, I like to consider it like the Stormtrooper effect. You know, it's when the bad guys tend to look like mindless drones who are just carrying out the orders of an even bigger baddie. We don't really tend to think of them as people. And yes, granted, that is understandable with the likes of the Ginyu Force. Their purpose in the story was just to buy everybody some time, so that means Goku can arrive, yet we get some kind of entertainment, and yet we don't have to bring out Frieza yet. But unlike most minions, the Ginyu Force really deserved to be there. They weren't just there to buy some time or act as filler. They genuinely provided some substance to the story. By giving them colourful personalities and equally colourful designs, Toriyama cemented in our minds that these characters weren't going to be going anywhere. And no one would be any the wiser that the manga and the anime are really close to actually being at the same point in the story. The likes of Ginyu, Jace, Berta, they all had their own wants and needs, and you know, you kind of got that from them. They were all their very own unique characters. And even their gimmicks were sort of what I'd like to call tragicomical. Raccoon is very strong and agile, but he cannot get a hit on Goku. Goldo, in theory, should be the most powerful of them all, but ultimately is the weakest. As for Berta, oh man, Berta, I feel so sorry for that guy. And Jace, we don't even know what his business is. Or do we? I was just casually browsing the Kanzanshu forums one day, and I unearthed something when I was researching this video that just absolutely blew my mind. I found a translation piece from Herms, which actually detailed the ideas and origins of the Ginyu Force, and this came from a guidebook from an old Famicom Dragon Ball Z game, Gekishin Frieza. In the guidebook, there is a double-page spread detailing the origins and the backgrounds of the Ginyu Force, and yeah, it's not really detailed, but it's just enough to provide something that I had no idea existed before. And yes, okay, this isn't from a major publication or from a manga, it's just for a video game guidebook, and you tend to not really read them that much, especially nowadays, but it's there, and Toriyama probably either okayed this or had something to do with it. They probably just went, hey, Toriyama, could you just write something for the guidebook? Oh, okay, yeah, sure. Here's what Herms was able to summate from the spread. Ginyu and Co. explain about how their special powers originated during their childhood. Berta's mother was very strict, making him do all the household chores and slapping him if he was late preparing dinner, but because of this, he became the fastest in the universe. Raccoon practiced dance, which is how he got his agility and various battle poses. When Ginyu first learned of his change ability, he swapped bodies with the richest kid in his class. This made him popular with girls, but also stupid, and he realized that men should compete in terms of strength, rather than money, it's implied. Jace was a pitcher in the Galactic Little League, and it was there that he developed the Crusher Ball as his special technique. Goldo realized he had psychic powers as a kid. He was a real brat, using his powers to lift up girls' skirts and steal whatever toys he wanted. Oh my god. Jace? Jace was just basically Yamcha, but in space. Space Yamcha. The baseball connection, the hair, the Crusher/Spirit Ball. Oh my god, Toriyama just copied Yamcha! Yamcha in stereo, baby! Dang it, Toriyama, you lazy genius! On a side note though, this does confirm that Ginyu's body that we see wasn't his original body. There have been various tidbits in the anime and manga and magazines that it was the likes of Salza that actually saw Ginyu's original body, but then again, that might not have been his original body. Because he obviously changed bodies with the likes of people at school, you know, that kind of vapid idea. And even though this information is relatively short, it provides loads of brand new avenues of analysis that we can do, as well as giving the gang even more personality. Would Toriyama or whoever oversaw this bother with any other type of minion to actually write that and actually go into detail? That whole shtick about Raccoon being a dancer when he was a kid, that makes so much sense. This wasn't just some kind of half-baked idea that didn't connect with the anime. It makes perfect sense. Now his stances and poses, they don't look weird. That's just what he does. And yeah, as for Goldo, he was just a right jerk. No wonder he was off so quickly. He doesn't deserve a single dog treat. So let's go back to Ginyu's body change ability. What this manages to prove is that he didn't create this body change thing just to get powerful. He just wanted to actually possess the body. And I think ultimately, his really materialistic and facile motivations for this technique really proved its downfall when he actually changed bodies with Goku. Yeah, that didn't work out too well for him. It proved that the body change ability isn't a broken power-up. And what I'm trying to get at here is that how the story is presented, it tends to make us really pity the Ginyu squad. The Ginyu Force were more than just another bunch of baddies coming in to try and, wreck the Z Fighters' day. No, they were the ultimate subversion in the entire Frieza saga. With those 5 characters, Toriyama took a formula which was wildly popular, the Super Sentai thing, and turned it on its head. But at the same time, they managed to stand on their own 2 feet and prove to be wildly popular in their own right. And also, this is a bit of a tangent, but did you notice that when Ginyu possessed the body of Tagoma and then Vegeta took him out, that it actually completed a circle which was otherwise broken, that Vegeta ultimately took out all the members of the Ginyu Force? I just wanted to point it out. It was just a really nifty little bit of continuity there. With the idea of them not being the strongest fighters these days, this actually gives them a lot less pressure to be able to do their thing. They are now there as gag characters, as we saw in the likes of King Kai's Planet. That was absolutely hilarious, and I was thinking, oh yeah, they're there too, but how do they get to keep their bodies? And also, I don't think their endearing nature just ended with the likes of the audience. I think they made a bigger impact than that. These guys are supposedly the second strongest force in the Frieza Force, second only to Frieza himself. But I think they actually had a positive impact on the Overlord. You see, Frieza is pretty ruthless, yet at the same time, he is willing to put up with the antics of the Ginyu Force. He puts up with it. He just lets them do their thing. You could feel that he actually has a soft spot for them in a way, even though he might not say that in public. It's almost like a part of him really likes this weird bunch of baddies. They clearly on the surface look really mismatched, but they really gel well with each other. And this says a lot for Frieza, who tends to just dispatch minions who don't really get results. Until this day, we've not had a bunch of minions who have been that recognizable like the Ginyu Force are. And while several times the likes of the Pride Troopers have tried to emulate the Ginyu Force, what with the poses and the social interactions and all, and Toppo, I cannot get enough of him in a suit, it just doesn't sit well, it's not the same. They tried to pay homage to the Ginyu Force and the Super Sentai concept, but we didn't really get to spend enough time with them before we got to the action. We didn't really get to see them gel well and talk. They were just there to fight. Hopefully in the future, Toei might see the potential in them and give us a little bit more backstory with the Pride Troopers. We got that with Toppo and Dispo. Let's get it with the rest of the gang, shall we? We could really use more of that. Some colourful antagonists. We salute you, Ginyu Force! So what do you guys think? Do you like the Ginyu Force? Do you think it could actually work in modern day Dragon Ball? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Until the next one, be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later!